You're not welcome here! My mom screamed and slammed the door in my face. I simply nodded and walked away. A month later they called me crying because, when my mother's voice rang out through the doorway, filled with venom and finality, I simply nodded, turned around, and walked away. The night air was cool against my face as I stepped off their porch, the weight of years of rejection pressing against my chest. But I wasn't breaking down. I wasn't going to let them see me crumble, not this time. For as long as I could remember, I had been the black sheep of the family. The afterthought? The one they could call when they needed help but never invite when they wanted to celebrate. My older brother, Mark, was their golden child. He could do no wrong. He was charming, successful, or so they said, and always seemed to be the center of their world. Me? I was the disappointment. The one who never measured up. And now, it was official. My own mother had disowned me. I reached my car, got inside, and sat for a long moment. No tears. No rage. Just a strange, unfamiliar sense of relief. Maybe this was the best thing that had ever happened to me. I started the engine and drove away without looking back. I didn't have a plan. I had spent so many years bending over backward for them, chasing approval that was never going to come, that I never stopped to think about what my life could be like without them in it. But as I drove away from their house, past the familiar streets of my childhood, I realized something. This wasn't loss. This was freedom. For years, my parents had only kept me around when it was convenient. Need someone to help pay off a bill? Call me. Need someone to fix something around the house? Call me. Need someone to listen to Mark's endless list of accomplishments? Oh, better invite me over. But real support? Real love? That had never been in the equation. I should have seen this final rejection coming. The first real sign had been my mother's growing impatience with me. It wasn't just disappointment anymore, it was disdain. It started small. A dismissive tone. A critical remark about how I wasn't getting anywhere in life, while Mark was making something of himself. Then, it escalated. Being left out of family gatherings. Finding out through social media that my parents had thrown Mark a birthday party while I wasn't even invited. The final straw had come last week. I had just gotten off a long shift when my mom called, her voice sweet, too sweet. "Hey, sweetheart," she had said, the way she only ever did when she wanted something. "We need a little favor." I already knew where this was going. "We're helping Mark put a down payment on a house," she continued, "and we're just a little short. Only a few thousand. You'd be helping your brother so much." My grip tightened on my phone. "You mean the same Mark who makes 6 figures and never lifts a finger to help you with anything?" She sighed, like I was the one being difficult. "It's different. He has a future. He's starting a family. He needs stability. You don't have those kinds of responsibilities." It hit me all at once. They didn't just favor him. They saw him as worth investing in. And me? I was just the backup plan. I refused. And just like that, the mask dropped. I had barely gotten the words out before she was calling me selfish, ungrateful, a disappointment. She said things she could never take back. And now, 1 week later, she was standing in the doorway of her house, screaming at me to leave. And for the first time in my life, I did exactly what they wanted. I left. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in my small apartment, staring at the ceiling, letting the silence settle around me. No more calls. No more guilt trips. No more feeling like I was nothing unless they needed something from me. I should have felt empty. Maybe even devastated. But instead, I felt lighter than I had in years. By morning, I had made my decision. I was done. Completely, utterly done. No more reaching out. No more waiting for them to change. No more letting them treat me like an afterthought. I turned off my phone for the first time in years, something I never did because I was always waiting for that inevitable "Can you help us out?" text. I wasn't waiting anymore. Instead, I got to work building something new. A life without them. The first thing I did was take care of my finances. For years, I had been sending money to my parents whenever they asked, cutting into my own savings just to keep them happy. That was over. I checked my accounts, calculated what I actually had, and for the first time, I started thinking about me. I focused on my job. I picked up an extra shift, not because I needed the money for them, but because I had plans, real plans, for my future. And I started reaching out to people I had neglected. Friends, colleagues, people who had actually cared about me but whom I had always pushed aside in favor of my family's demands. The first person I called was an old friend, Jake. "Wow, man, I thought you fell off the face of the earth," he said, laughing. "Where've you been?" "Caught up in family stuff," I admitted. "But I'm done with that now." He didn't ask for details. He just said, "Good. You needed to be." And that was it. The start of something new. I spent the next few weeks rebuilding. My world no longer revolved around waiting for my family to need me. I worked out. I went out more. I made plans that didn't include last-minute cancellations because Mom and Dad needed something. And for the first time, I felt like I was actually living. I thought that was the end of it. Until my phone rang a month later. Their number flashed across my screen. My mother. The same woman who had slammed the door in my face. I stared at it for a long moment. Something had happened. And I had a feeling I knew exactly what it was. I let the phone ring. For a moment, I considered ignoring it altogether. But something told me this wasn't just another guilt trip. So I answered. The first thing I heard was my mother's voice, strained, shaking, nothing like the cold, sharp tone she had used the last time we spoke. "David, please, we need you." I stayed silent, waiting. Then, in the background, I heard another voice, my father's, gruff and broken in a way I had never heard before. "It's Mark," he said. He screwed us, David. We don't know what to do." I almost laughed. Of course. The golden child. The one they had put all their faith in, all their trust, all their money. The son they had chosen over me. And now? He had finally turned his back on them. Still, I didn't say a word. I let the silence stretch, forcing them to continue. My mother was crying now. "We gave him everything, David. Everything. And he took it all. He drained our savings. He convinced us to co-sign a loan, and then he just left. He won't answer our calls. He moved to another state. He's gone." I blinked. Mark? Mr. Perfect? Mr. Can Do No Wrong? Gone. I didn't know whether to be surprised or not. Looking back, Mark had always been charming. Manipulative, even. He had a way of getting what he wanted and making everyone else clean up the mess. I just never thought my parents would be on the receiving end of it. My father cleared his throat. He hated asking for help, especially from me. But desperation had worn him down. We need money, David. We're behind on everything. The house, the car, we could lose everything." I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of their words settle. For years, they had treated me like I was expendable. A background character in their lives. And now, after throwing me away, they were crawling back, begging me to save them. The irony was almost too much. I took a deep breath. And then I said, in the calmest voice I could manage, "I can't help you." Silence. Then my mother's voice, brittle and panicked. "What do you mean you can't? We're your parents, David. We raised you." I exhaled slowly. "No, Mom. You raised Mark. You tolerated me. And now you're asking me to fix the damage he did?" My father muttered something under his breath, but I didn't care. "You made your choice," I said simply. "You chose him. You always did. And now you can live with it." My mother sobbed. My father started cursing. I didn't listen. I just hung up. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. The moment I hung up, I expected to feel guilt. For years, they had trained me to believe that family meant sacrifice, that loyalty meant putting their needs above my own. And in the past I would have cracked, I would have let their desperation sink into my bones, making me doubt myself. But this time, I felt nothing but peace. I turned off my phone and leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. My parents had spent their whole lives placing Mark on a pedestal, giving him everything while expecting me to survive on scraps. They never once considered that their golden child might betray them. And now he had. I went about my day, ignoring the dozens of missed calls that followed. My mother, my father, even some relatives I hadn't heard from in years, all trying to convince me to come to my senses. By nightfall, I got a message from an unknown number. It was Mark. "You happy now? You think this makes you better than me?" I stared at the message, then chuckled. He wasn't apologizing. He wasn't even acknowledging what he had done. No, in true Mark fashion, he was angry, not because of what he did to them, but because he knew I wasn't stepping in to fix it. For the first time in my life, I let myself enjoy the moment. I typed back one word. Yes. And then I blocked his number. The next morning, I woke up to a knock at my door. I sighed, already knowing who it was. I pulled on a shirt, walked over, and opened it. Sure enough, my parents stood there, looking like they had aged 10 years overnight. My mother's eyes were swollen from crying, my father's usual arrogance was gone, replaced by something I'd never seen before. Fear. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "What do you want?" My mother reached for my arm, but I pulled away. "David, please. We didn't know. We didn't think Mark would do this to us." I gave a short, bitter laugh. "You didn't think?" I repeated. "You mean the same Mark who's never faced a consequence in his life? The same Mark who's used people his entire existence?" My father clenched his jaw. "This isn't the time to lecture us." "Then why are you here?" I asked. Silence. They had no answer. Because the truth was, they weren't here for me. They weren't here to make things right. They were here because they had no other options. I exhaled slowly. "I spent my entire life waiting for you to love me the way you love him." I shook my head. "But I finally understand, I was never part of your family. I was just a backup plan." My mother started crying again. My father looked away. I took a deep breath, standing taller. "Go home. Figure it out. Because I'm done." Then, before they could say another word, I shut the door in their faces. I stood there for a moment, listening. On the other side of the door, my mother was still sobbing. My father muttered something under his breath, probably cursing me for not bending to his will like I always had. But I didn't open the door. I didn't feel the need to. After a few minutes, their voices faded. A car door slammed. Then silence. I exhaled. They were gone. For the first time in my life, I had shut them out, fully, completely, permanently. And for the first time in my life, I meant it. I walked back to my kitchen, made myself some coffee, and sat down at my table. Just another morning. No guilt, no second-guessing. Just peace. They would survive. They always found a way to get by when it came to Mark's mistakes. Maybe they'd crawl back to their relatives, spinning some story about how I had abandoned them. Maybe they'd sell the house, move somewhere smaller. Maybe they'd finally realize that the golden child they'd built their lives around had left them with nothing. But whatever happened next? It wasn't my problem. For the first time in my life, I was free. And I wasn't going back. The first few days after shutting the door on my parents were eerily quiet. No more guilt-ridden phone calls. No more desperate messages. No more weight on my shoulders. I kept expecting the regret to creep in, to feel some kind of crushing loneliness from finally cutting them off. But it never came. Instead, I felt lighter. For the first time in years, I wasn't living for them. I wasn't working overtime to send them money. I wasn't picking up my phone, bracing for yet another demand disguised as a favor. I was living for me. So I leaned into it. I threw myself into my work, finally saying yes to opportunities one had been too drained to take before. I started going to the gym, something I had neglected while spending all my energy on my family's problems. I reconnected with old friends, ones I had pushed away because I was too exhausted dealing with my parents' drama to maintain real relationships. And for the first time, I started planning my future, not just surviving day to day, waiting for the next crisis. A few weeks later, I got an unexpected message. It was from my aunt, my mother's older sister. I heard what happened. I just wanted to say, I understand why you did what you did. And I don't blame you. I frowned at the screen, caught off guard. My extended family had always been neutral when it came to my parents' favoritism. They never stepped in, never called them out. So why now? I hesitated before typing back. Thanks. But why are you telling me this? A few minutes later, she responded. Because your parents are telling everyone that you abandoned them. That you owe them. But I know the truth. I stared at the message, feeling something stir inside me, something I hadn't expected. Not anger. Not sadness. Just relief. Because for the first time, someone in my family saw me. And they didn't blame me for walking away. I reread my aunt's message, letting it sink in. For years, my parents had controlled the narrative, painting me as ungrateful, difficult, the problem child who could never measure up to Mark. And now, even after everything, they were still playing the same game. But this time, it wasn't working. I typed back. What exactly are they saying? Her response came fast. That you turned your back on them. That you left them to suffer after everything they did for you. That you're selfish, heartless, and ungrateful. I let out a short laugh. Of course. That sounded exactly like them. And do people believe them? I asked. This time, her reply took longer. Some do. But not everyone. Mark burned a lot of bridges. More people are seeing your parents for who they really are. That last part hit me harder than I expected. For so long, I had felt like I was screaming into the void, trying to prove to myself, and everyone else, that I wasn't the villain in my own family's story. But now, people were finally seeing the truth. Thanks for telling me, I wrote back. But I don't care what they say anymore. And for the first time in my life, that was the absolute truth. I set my phone down and exhaled. For years I had lived under their shadow, always the afterthought, always the one expected to clean up their mess. Even after cutting them off, a part of me had been waiting for the guilt to creep in, waiting for the moment I'd second-guess myself and consider going back. But now I felt nothing but relief. I had spent my whole life believing that family was supposed to mean something, that no matter what, you stood by them. But family isn't supposed to be a cage. It isn't supposed to drain you until there's nothing left. And that's exactly what they had done to me. But I wasn't their backup plan anymore. I wasn't their safety net. I wasn't theirs. And they couldn't stand it. A few days passed before they tried again. It started with a text from my mother. Mom, David, please, just talk to us. We're struggling. We need you. Family takes care of each other. I ignored it. A few hours later, my father called. I let it go to voicemail. Then came more messages. More attempts to pull me back in. Mom, we're going to lose the house if we don't get help. Please, we don't have anyone else. Dad, you think you're better than us now? That you can just turn your back on your own parents? After everything we did for you? I stared at my screen, shaking my head. Everything they did for me? Like what? Ignoring me for years while they showered Mark with love and resources? Calling me a disappointment? Using me as an emotional and financial crutch while they built up their golden son? The more I read, the more I realized something. They weren't actually sorry. They didn't regret how they treated me. They regretted losing the convenience of having me around. They weren't looking for reconciliation. They were looking for a bailout. And they were never going to get one from me. The next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from my father. His voice was tight with barely restrained anger. David, this is your last chance. If you don't help us, you're out of this family. We'll tell everyone you abandoned us. That you left your own parents to suffer. You'll be alone. Is that what you want? I laughed out loud. I had already been alone my entire life, at least when it came to them. They thought cutting me off was a punishment. I had already walked away. I deleted the voicemail without a second thought. I thought that was the end of it. That they'd finally give up and face the consequences of their choices. Then, 3 days later, another text came in. Unknown number, David, it's me. We need to talk. Mark. I stared at the message for a long time. Out of everyone, he was the last person I expected to reach out. I almost didn't reply. But curiosity got the best of me. Me about what? His response came fast. Mark, I screwed up, okay? I know I messed up. But I need your help. I rolled my eyes. Of course. This wasn't an apology. This was damage control. I ignored him. A few hours later, another message. Mark, you think you're better than me now? That you can just sit back and watch our parents suffer? You're pathetic. There it was. The real Mark. The moment he realized I wasn't coming to save him, his fake humility vanished. I smiled to myself, shaking my head. And then? I blocked his number. I woke up the next morning feeling lighter than I had in years. No dread. No waiting for the next guilt trip. No weight on my shoulders. Because I was finally done. For so long, I had let them dictate my worth. I had spent years trying to prove I was just as deserving of love and respect as Mark, but the truth was, I never needed their validation. I had always been enough. They just weren't capable of seeing it. A week passed. Then, out of nowhere, I got a final message from my mother. Mom, David, I don't know what to say anymore. I never thought you would turn your back on us like this. We needed you. We're your family. But I guess that doesn't mean anything to you. I read the message slowly, feeling nothing. No sadness. No anger. No guilt. Just closure. For years I had been waiting for an apology that would never come. For them to see me, to appreciate me. But they never would. And that was okay. I didn't need an apology. I didn't need anything from them anymore. So I typed one final message. Me, you made your choice a long time ago. Now you get to live with it. Then, without another thought, I blocked her number. That was the last time I ever heard from them. Maybe they expected me to come crawling back eventually. Maybe they still thought of me as the weak, desperate son who would do anything for their approval. But that part of me was gone. Over the next few months, my life only got better. Without them draining me, I started thriving at work. I traveled for the first time in years. I reconnected with friends, built real relationships, not ones based on obligation, but on choice. And most importantly, I finally felt free.